today's recipe, we're making a classic tuna casserole. Now, this is a nice comfort food. It's creamy, it's cheesy, it's decadent, it's just delicious. But if you know me, I like to put a healthy twist on things, so I'm gonna change it up a little bit, and today we're gonna make it gluten-free. For all my gluten-free friends out there, you've gotta try this. It is delicious. If you don't care about gluten-free, you're not gonna notice. And if you do care, you can also make it, or you don't have gluten-free, ingredients, you can make this just regular, right? You can use your noodles, whatever noodles you want. I've got breadcrumbs in here and flour, so those can all be substitute in and out. That's what's great about this recipe. You can make this to whatever your food preferences are. The other thing I want to mention is there is no canned soup in this recipe. We're making everything from scratch, and it's not difficult. It's actually quite simple and easy to do. So I'm Rockin' Robin, and I'm going to show you all the details on how to do it right after this. So before we get started, I want to start off with our little chef joke story today. All right, so here's two tuna fish, and they're swimming along in the ocean, and they come upon and they see a submarine. So the big mama tuna says to the little one, "Well, don't be scared, little tuna. That's just a canned human." All right, let's get into our recipe. Okay, so for our ingredients, we're going to start off with our pasta. So I'm using Banza pasta, which is a chickpea pasta. It's a great gluten-free alternative. You can use any pasta you like. This one happens to have, some really good protein, more protein than regular pasta, some good fiber, and it is a little bit lower in carbs. For my tuna, I'm using skipjack tuna, and I'm using skipjack in particular because it is lower in mercury as opposed to using albacore, which is a bigger fish, and it tends to have more mercury. We'll need some sharp cheddar cheese that's grated. We'll need some frozen peas as well. I've got some super fine dice here on a yellow onion, some celery, and this is my super fine dice on mushrooms. Now, I do that in particular because my family doesn't like the big pieces. So if you like big pieces of mushrooms, go ahead and slice them up and just leave them big. But I like to do it small, and this is my flavor base. This is gonna really help this dish come alive with these flavors because we're going to be sauteing this in some olive oil. We'll need some chicken broth. I'm using 2% milk here. This is regular cow's milk. Again, you can substitute lots of different milks here. Almond milk would work, and so would coconut milk. I think I would probably tend to go with coconut milk if you wanted a different alternative just because of the fat content. It makes it a little bit richer and, more decadent. We'll need some flour. Again, I'm using Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 baking flour. You can use regular flour here if you'd like. I've got some fresh, and I like to use fresh herbs, so this is fresh thyme. I got it out of my garden. You just want to peel those little leaves off and chop it up nice and fine. I'm using some Sauvignon Blanc. You can use any white wine you want, and this is optional as well. It's just a flavor enhancer. You can, leave it out if you want. We're just adding a little bit, and it will cook off the alcohol. To season it up, we're going to use some garlic powder, some salt and pepper, and then to finish this dish off, we're going to put a little topping on it made with breadcrumbs. Now here I'm using Aleia's gluten-free breadcrumbs, which work beautifully. They're seasoned with some Italian seasoning. I'm going to add some Parmesan cheese to that and some butter. I'm going to combine that and sprinkle it on top. It is wonderful. So we'll need some olive oil, and I'm using an avocado spray for my pan so it doesn't stick, and we'll need a little bit of butter. I've got my pot of water here starting to boil with the lid to cook my pasta according to the package directions, which will take about 9 minutes after it starts to boil. So we got that going. And then in my big frying pan here, we're going to start cooking up our onions and our celery and our mushrooms. So I'm going to place some olive oil into the pan, probably a tablespoon. Place our onions in there, the celery, and the mushrooms. And we're going to saute this for 10 minutes. Now while our onions are cooking over here, I'm going to prep up our pan here. I'm just going to spray it with a little bit of avocado spray, just a light coating. That'll keep it from sticking. I'm also going to season this up just a little bit. Just going to put a little bit of salt in there and just a little bit of garlic powder and some cracked pepper. So I've got this over medium heat right now, and I am going to lower the temperature as it gets really cooking because I don't want it to burn. Our pasta water is boiling. I'm just going to throw in a little bit of salt, and then we'll toss in the pasta and cook that for 9 minutes. And the idea is to get this all timed out so that, everything comes together at the same time. It's been 10 minutes now. So we're ready to add some more ingredients to our pan. Next I'm going to add the thyme. So I'm going to add the flour to my chicken broth while it's cold, and that way it won't lump up. Now it's time to add the wine to the pan and let that cook. And now I'm going to add the chicken broth with the flour to this. And we add the milk. Depending on how thick your sauce gets, you can always add a little more chicken broth to it if it's too thick. Now at this point I am going to add a little more garlic powder to this. Another pinch of salt, and a few cracks of pepper. So as this starts to get hot, you can see it's starting to thicken up. Alright, so I've got my skipjack tuna here, and I've drained it, and so I'm going to, with clean hands of course, I'm going to use my hands to break it up because I don't want big chunks. I want lots of little pieces everywhere. Drain out our pasta and it'll be ready to add. Time to add the cheese to this. And you can see that the cheese just melts right in. Time to add the pasta. Give that a stir. And I'm going to add the peas. Now essentially this is done. We could put it together in our dish. You could even freeze it at this point and then use it at a later date, and then you would take it out, thaw it out in your refrigerator. You would want to add your crust after the fact though. You wouldn't want to freeze that. It just turns out better if you just add it at the end when you're ready to make it. So now we'll just pour it right into our prepared baking dish. Next we'll combine our breadcrumbs with the Parmesan cheese and then add some melted butter to it. Stir it up till it's the sand-like consistency, and then we'll sprinkle it on top of our casserole. Okay, this is going in the oven, 375 for about 15 to 20 minutes. While our casserole is cooking in the oven, it's time for some giggles. No, I didn't forget our chef joke number 2. Here you go. Why did the squirrel bury the tuna? Because if you spell it backwards, it's a nut. Here's our casserole. After 20 minutes, you can see, you want to see that bubbling going on around the perimeter there. And I'd like to see a little browning here. I got a little bit going on here. You can speed that up. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my oven on broil for just a couple minutes and let that brown up just a little bit on top. Our casserole has been cooling now you want to let it set up for about 10 minutes or so because it's really hot, especially in the baking dish that I'm using. It really retains heat. So let it set up a little bit and it'll be easier to serve. Ah, this is so creamy and flavorful. All right, let's do a taste test, get a little bit of that crust on top. This recipe is a winner. You've got to try it. It's savory. It's not, too cheesy, but it's got a little cheese in there, and the crust on top gives it a little variation, a little crunch. Man, it's delicious, guys. It's a definite comfort food.